Lots of videos lately. Anyway, I just did one on Loggerheads. I think it was kind of funny, so I'll post a link. Well, it's not funny, but well, it's funny a little bit, but it's sort of pointed, but it's kind of interesting. Anyway, not Loggerheads, it's that Lima Palooza thing, yeah. Okay, anyway. Alright, on to this Fred thing. I'm going to try to keep this under 10 minutes. Fred and the Amazing Atheist are talking to each other, and the Amazing Atheist won't accept my videos as responses, and, you know, he won't respond to me. But since Fred is talking to the giant ball of pus, maybe Fred will do me a favor, and actually inject into the conversation something meaningful, because this really isn't Fred's subject, apparently. I mean, he really doesn't even understand, you know, electoral college and that kind of stuff, and so I don't think he's given it a whole lot of thought in terms of the dynamics of what a government is. These metaphors are just stupid, though. Leviathan and all this other kind of crap. This is the rhetoric of the fucking morons. I mean, you're talking about, you know, morons being part of the democracy. Well, those are the morons, okay? I mean, the assholes screaming and waving their hands like the government's after them. You know, the Alex Jones Looney Tunes. They're morons. So, you know, and this whole, even Fred used this thing about IQ, like IQ has something to do with anything. You don't have to be a goddamn Einstein to understand things like I don't have a right to impose my fucktarded psychological bullshit on somebody else. I mean, they don't have to live my life. You can be, you know, you don't have to have a high IQ to figure out. You have some responsibility to respect the liberty of other people. Just because you don't enjoy their liberty, you don't have a right to suppress their liberty. Obviously, people haven't figured that out because they're, you know, taxing cigarettes at, you know, 800, 900, 1,000%, the highest tax substance on earth. And obviously it's complete bullshit because cigarette smokers are a net benefit to the economy. But because people are fooled by liars, and that's the game really, is accountability and a fair argument. Fairness, okay, so that's the key word here. You don't talk about it, but that's all the government is basically doing. That's what civilization is. It's creating this thing called fairness because nature doesn't have it. But smart people can create it. That's what smart people can do. They can use their brain and create a system that creates fairness. So what do we do? I've made this analogy tons and tons and tons of times. What do we do when we have a game? We create umpires, all right? And they have a little rule book and they have little flags to throw. And it's really fucking simple, okay? And we never sit there and worry in the game about, oh, the umpires are taking over, the umpires are ruining the game. I mean, it happens in, like, you know, whatever, figure skating in the Olympics. Obviously, the umpires are assholes because it's all subjective. But we know that we can create a system, a game, and we can make it simple enough, the rules, and we can make the umpires fair enough, and we can have a good damn game that way. A fair game. We can create fairness, and that's what civilization is, though. It's just, and that's what government is. Government is civilization. You can't take these words apart from each other. So let's talk about civilization. And you know, in democracy, seems like there's no counter argument. There's just no better system. I mean, obviously, it's not the ideal, but there's no better system. You really can't. You might be able to create some sort of graduated citizenship thing, but you know that's going to get you in trouble. You know, as soon as you have a hierarchy or you start giving some people rights because they, you know, spout a certain thing, or they read the right book, or they do some other thing that you know, some majority decides is the standard, that's just not going to work. But anyway, it's just making these look. And the umpires, and who makes the rules? The people ultimately have the power to make the rules. It's just that the system they have to make those rules, it sucks, okay? Because it's always blighted by this, the fact that our democracy was invented in a time when it took, you know, 3 days to go 50 miles. I mean, it's a completely different world we live in, and we haven't allowed our democracies to evolve into that world. And that's the real problem here. You know, in the past, you couldn't have representative democracy. You had to do things based on geography, because that's the only place people could vote. That's the only place people could see the candidates, because they couldn't go across the country. They couldn't broadcast on TV. There was no way to do it any other way. And so we're still living with a system that has this geographic focus, that our lives exist as a geographic entity, that I am possessed by my geography rather than my ideology. It's not my beliefs that get represented in my government. It's my fucking geography, which is stupid. So if I live among a bunch of people who have a certain ideology, then my beliefs get destroyed. I'm just neutralized. I have no representation. And so this is a huge, giant subject, because this makes a huge change in the system. And like I said, these are simple changes. So you just get rid of the geographic bias in legislative bodies. So now a legislative body wouldn't be party controlled. The only way you could get elected is through affirmative votes, so you could not steal anyone else's vote. And you'd have real representation in elective bodies. So the Congress and the Senate and all the state legislatures would be open, and they'd be purely representative of the exact population. So there'd be Klan members, and there'd be communists, and there'd be the whole range of human diversity would be represented, and the argument would be made. And so then we'd have fairness again, because at least we'd have an opportunity to make the argument to the people, and people would hear the arguments and see the arguments. And so when we as a civilization made mistakes as a democracy, there'd be people in that body pointing out the mistake, okay, on a daily basis, and rubbing it in our fucking nose and letting us know that there's a better way to do this. But we're not going to get that with the stupid two-party system that has sold out to special interests. On the right, the special interests of the filthy rich and the religious kooks, and on the left, the big giant labor unions, especially the government unions. And get rid of that bias, and we gain a huge amount. No more pork barrel spending, no more military bases deciding what the constituents, what the people who live there, all of a sudden what their ideology is. Okay, then things are going to have to start, people will start voting who they are, not their geography. And they'll still have the choice to vote their geography if that's all they care about. But they'll have the freedom to step outside of their geography and actually vote their ideology. Huge difference. So you just get rid of the geographic bias and apply instant runoff voting. You apply this technology where you can ensure that people's second, third, fourth, fifth choice. So you never have a Ralph Nader scenario. You never have spoilers in presidential elections ever again. People are truly represented, and we can do that. But this big fat ball of pus is never going to talk about something like that. So maybe you got to please shove it in the trough in front of the jackass. Whatever you can. Well, whatever. Like I said, yeah. So he's talking to you. So good for you. But anyway, he said there. I hope he actually said something like, "I hope you're not a supporter of the KKK." This has come from the guy who's made repeated videos explaining, pointing out how he thinks the Civil Rights Act was crap and that it did blacks harm, and that it'd be much better if Whitey still had the power to say, "You can't use my gas station, you can't eat in my diner." He thinks the world would still be so much better off if we segregated ourselves even more, so we create even more clear boundaries between ourselves, so then we have even more incentive to blow each other the fuck up. This is a fucking retard. He's also a big fan of rape. But anyway, fuck. But this isn't that. This is about umpires. This is about civilization. This is about fairness. That's the whole fucking objective of this stupid thing called government. And to sit there and keep pretending it's some other force, that it's something imposing on us. No, what's being imposed on us is that people aren't even going to argue in defense of something better. All these intelligent people just keep jumping on these asshole bandwagons and just confusing the environment with more bullshit rhetoric. Like Chomsky, for example, you sit there and throw around the word anarchy like that makes any fucking sense whatsoever. Socialized anarchy. Ugh, God. But anyway, this can be a much more constructive conversation if people just quit with this bullshit rhetoric. Leviathan is no way to describe what government is or what government has accomplished, which is giving power to the people. And we have so much more power than we ever had, and we can have so fucking much more if we just step out of the 200-year-old mold that, people are addicted to tradition. They can't step above it sometimes, and so they need a push. But that's where the conversation needs to be, is on that progression, on getting to a point where we actually give people the power to break the unaccountable bullshit that exists in the system. The people would not vote to give judges immunity. The people would not be voting to give politicians immunity if they intentionally violate somebody's constitutional rights. The people wouldn't give them immunity from prosecution if they willfully and maliciously lied to them. That's not going to happen. So when the real truth is put before them and have a real chance to pull a lever for something that's meaningful, they're probably going to improve this government quite a bit because people want accountability. They don't want to be ruled by fucking liars. It wouldn't be their choice, but they're not given a choice. So anyway, enough of a rant. Yeah, that's enough.